Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whiskey. My name is Ben PF, and on today's episode we've got something very, very special, something I never thought would be in my collection. We've got a Ben Nevis, a 26-year-old and a 1996 at that. I should say at the top of the show, this has clearly been sent to me by That Boutique-y Whisky Company. It's a very expensive whiskey, and we'll get into a value a little bit later on, but these whiskies of this type tend to go for quite a lot of money. This one here is retailing for 380 quid for a half-litre bottle. So no matter what I actually think about the liquid, I just wouldn't be able to afford that sort of thing. So massive thank you to them for being able to send this across. It's a real identifier for why I interact with the industry in the way I do. I don't often talk about this on camera, but I like to work with industry, and occasionally I get sent some bottles, quite a lot to be fair, but I like to do it because I would get hold of whiskey that I would never be able to get hold of otherwise, and therefore being able to bring my thoughts and opinions to you guys. For otherwise I'd end up just pretty much covering supermarket whiskies to go within my budget. But yeah, so super grateful to them for sending this over. This is part of a new range from That Boutique-y Whisky Company called the End of the World series. They've got 29 different bottles from all different ranges of prices and ages and distilleries and whatnot, even around the world to a certain extent. And it kind of like the theme really is that it's like whiskies, like the last bottle that you would ever buy, should the world be coming to an end. The whiskey inside isn't sort of thematically around that, but the labels, we always like the labels at Boutique-y Whisky Company. They're all very interesting. This one here is depicting a super volcano, so they're all depicting something around the end of the world, whether it be, I don't know, like robots or hurricanes or whatever. So I'll drop a link in the description below so you can go and check out the other 28 in the series if you're interested in those, or this one if you are. Now, of course, a few key bits of information. As I said earlier, this is a Ben Nevis. This is their batch 17. They're reckoning that there's 553 bottles of this in existence, 47.8%, half a litre, and as I said earlier, 380 quid for that bottle. So yeah, very interesting. So 26 years, not to be sniffed at. The whole thing of that's been in a refill cask, so we're not sure how many times down that refill that's been, but that's pretty common practice, especially for something so old in terms of the single malt market. You aren't going to want kind of fresh wood to be interacting with that, but the key point is it's 26 years in the same barrel, the same refill barrel all the way through. It was actually distilled in November 1996, and that's a really important figure because I've been fortunate enough to try a couple of 1996 vintage Ben Nevises recently, and that seems to be, I'm not sure of the reason why exactly, that seems to be a kind of sweet spot in Ben Nevis's history. And this vintage, this 1996 vintage, seems to be a bit of a gold standard, and it's commanding really high prices, as we've seen here. I haven't seen a bottle of 96 Ben Nevis, especially as aged as this, 26 years, going for less than sort of £300, £200-300. I'm sure they exist elsewhere. I haven't done a whole heap of searching around for that, but yeah, the point is that if you ever get to try a whiskey like this, it's it's exceptional stuff and commands that price that goes with it. Okay, I think we best get into the liquid and see what we've got. Obviously, we can talk about the colour a little bit because Boutique-y Whisky Company is always non-chill filtered and natural coloured. So it's not a very deep colour, but that's why it's a refill cask. So the wood hasn't impacted on the liquid so much, and hopefully what we'll get from this is a nice idea of the distillery character without too much wood influence, and see exactly what we've got in terms of distillate and whatnot. So yeah, looks pretty good. Let's get onto the nose then and see what we've got. Now, again, it should go without saying, but because this is a particularly special whiskey, particularly highly aged whiskey, it's been sat in my glass for a good little while, and I highly recommend you do that as well. If you've got, a rule of thumb, they say, like a minute for every year, but you can do whatever you want. This has been a roughly that sort of 20 minutes. Let's get onto the nose then. Now for me, it's a whole heap of fresh apples and pears. It's got a big floral heathery note to it, which I'm really enjoying, and almost like a waxiness to it, which is really nice. It's such a beautiful nose. It's really like sort of fresh and clean and very understated. That's the important thing about this. Now it's obviously I try a lot of very youthful whiskey, and a lot of them are bold and in your face. Now this isn't that. This needs time. It needs dedication, but you'll find a load of cool stuff in this on the nose. Let's try on the palate. Now for me, oh yeah, for me the palate is where this dram sings. It's beautiful on the nose, but the palate is just absolutely stunning. There's no way of saying it otherwise. It's absolutely stunning. For me, it's got more of those apples and pears, but it's more on the side of like the sugar-coated pear drop sweets. I don't know if that's a worldwide thing, but I used to love those as a kid, and that's what I'm getting from this. Kind of takes me straight back there. There's I mean, so much fruit on this is unreal, but the ones I've picked out are apples, pears, and a bit of grapefruit. I could go deeper, some tropical notes in there as well, but you know me, I like to keep my tasting notes kind of like top level, so I don't like to go too deep into those. But that's basically what I'm getting, a kind of like a grapefruity vibe off of this. But again, that waxiness comes through. It's got a huge, thick mouthfeel to it. The kind of legs on it aren't super pronounced, but you know, you get an idea about it. I don't know if you can even see that on the camera, but it's I mean, it's just good, man. It's just good. The finish is huge, fruity, bit of spiciness on the back end. Absolutely lovely. Just like, probably, I mean, some of the Ben Nevises I've tried are definitely some of the best whiskies I've ever drank in my life, and this is definitely up there with them. Now, on the back end, we talk a little bit about value. Here's where it gets a bit murky, because obviously, as I said at the top of the show, 380 quid. I'm not spending that on a bottle of whiskey. I can't afford that, you know. I mean, for me, I would much rather have probably, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9 bottles that are much cheaper. But having said that, if I had that money, I would be buying this sort of stock. You know, all kind of, anytime I saw Ben Nevis 96, I would buy a bottle of it. If I had infinite cash, is the truth of it all. So it all depends on where you are on that journey, I think. You know, if that sounds like a lot of money to you, it probably is going to be a lot of money to you. If it doesn't, and you're into that sort of like collecting of Ben Nevis 26s, when I say collecting, I mean getting the bottles, drinking them, of course. I don't mean sitting on a shelf. But if it doesn't sound like that much to you, then it won't be. I've no doubt at all that these will sell, because it's such good whiskey, and we trust That Boutique-y Whisky Company. Obviously, the half-litre is going to jade a lot of you, but especially when you do the calculations on whether it would be a full bottle or not. But that's where I sit with it, is the truth of it all. This, in terms of value of its actual self, it's more than double my most expensive whiskey I've ever bought myself. So, yeah, that's all I can say to you guys, is that no, I would not have bought this with my own money, is the truth. But if I had it, yes, I would have. I still think it's one of the best whiskies I've ever tried. So, yeah. Unfortunately, that commands a high price. Now, that said, I was gifted this, so if you're lucky enough to see me at a club meetup or whatnot, then you're probably going to see this in my hand, because I'm going to be sharing this around. And hopefully, I'll get this out to some people as well, because what I'm not going to do, now that it's open, I'm not going to hoard this. I'm not going to kind of keep it aside, because that's not what I'm about. I'm about the sharing. When I get a bottle, hopefully, I kind of spread that love a little bit around. But yeah, anyway. Let me know what you think about this bottle. Let me know in the comments below. Especially go and check out the other 28 in this series, because there are more affordable malts in that section. So you definitely go and check them out and see what's there, because I'm sure you'll find something that's right up your street before these all sell out like most of these Boutique-y Whisky Company bottlings do. But there you go. I'll see you again on more videos in the future. Cheers.